So, on to Sony, which I think comes with the tagline for Chris of get hype.
Yes!
Albeit we're going to have a big caveat when we hit Resi for Salem, so we'll prepare ourselves for that. But Chris, do you want to start us off with the big God of War play intro?
Right. Okay, so I'm not normally a big fan of God of War. The only one I played was God of War 3 when it came out on PS4. Like, I love the spectacle fighter genre, but I just, for some reason, God of War, he just felt a bit clumsier compared to, say, something like Devil May Cry. This, to me, looked so bloody cool. It just seems, obviously, this is a much calmer Kratos. Like, you could see just how much they do character development with. Yeah, that's definitely his son.
It is, yeah. And there was the experience system where it seems like you're transferring learnings to his son. Whether or not he'll be a playable character later in the game, who knows?
Yeah, it's just, I love the fact that they've kind of slowed that down, got a different perspective. The combat still has, like, you know, those gory kill things and stuff.
Whoa, the big elephant in the room, where are his blades, man? He's there with a frost axe.
Yeah. I didn't finish God of War 3, so maybe he just cast them off. Which is weird, because I think in the lore they're like bouncing.
No, he just kills all the gods, and then he just hangs out in a chair.
I think the thing that's obviously really interesting here is we're seeing a completely different setting and array. He's got no gods left to kill, really. So he's taken the Norse mythology route, you know.
Go kill these Norse gods, yeah.
Is it Valhalla? Is it Mount Olympus? Who fucking knows what's going on? So that's obviously going to be the thing that everyone's waiting to have some context for. But it does, obviously, it now opens a whole host more canon as to how they're going to link those two worlds. And it looks really interesting, and it's interesting that they've tied him in with that. With, you know, it's a different voice actor now. We've got a different array of weaponry on the cards. You've got, you know, this whole different setting, the kind of the snowy mountaintops. It's a real departure. I mean, watching the thing that actually went through my head until the combat scene, I was watching, especially with him teaching the son, and I was thinking, am I almost seeing like a bearded Tomb Raider going on right here? Like,
it does seem very Tomb Raider. A lot of the exploration and stuff, and the more openish world definitely has that kind of vibe to it.
It actually closer drew me like more towards The Last of Us.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I think there's certainly like the over the shoulder thing certainly gives you that kind of feeling. But I think the hunting, and stuff was kind of what did with that for me. And then the combat, like the combat with that big kind of troll thing, it was almost Dark Soulsy in the way he was kind of dodging those big hits and getting in there. And
definitely. I love all the little details they throw in that demo as well. Like when Kratos first gets angry at his son for shooting the arrow too early at the deer. You can see in the top corner as he's shouting at him, there's this rage meter that fills up. But then he realizes he's only a child, takes a deep breath, calms himself and speaks to him as only father. And it's only fighting that bar slowly fills down. It's little things like that, and then as he comes towards the end of the demo and he helps his son, you know, kill what he was hunting, he goes to sort of reach
and
to
then he stops. Yeah, the son doesn't see it.
And he stops and he puts his hand back. It's little details like that. It seems like
human moments from Kratos.
They did actually mention that there were apparently a host of Easter eggs which people haven't found out yet from the demo. I mean, there were glyphs everywhere in that, so people are already trying to translate the glyphs and this sort of thing. So I'm sure if we kind of follow the press as we go on in the coming weeks, there's probably going to be a lot coming out about that trailer. But they specifically said there was a lot of little details that they placed in it deliberately to try and get people to pick up on.
So, certainly one of the biggest surprises of the whole show, I think. I really liked the first God of War, and then just didn't want to play another one because they were basically the same game. And just for it to just such a sea change, is really cool.
It's made me really excited to play that game, definitely.
And new voice actor, like we said, but again, feels very convincing and compelling so far. It didn't feel like a jarring shift, and equally, given the change in tone of the character, it kind of makes sense. You know, if there's ever going to be a time to change voice actor, it's when you're doing a change like this with the game.
It's when you're growing a big beard.
The other thing as well, you guys mentioned Last of Us a second ago, Chris, and I guess following on from that onto one of the next games that was featured. Probably not a similarity in gameplay or anything, but one that we did see a bit of a kind of similarity from, in my mind at least, in terms of the initial tone of that expose trailer, was Days Gone.
Yeah, there was a real moment where it looked like, hang on, is this just the new Last of Us?
I think what twigged for me is because they showed that it was Sony banned, so that's when I twigged, obviously, that it's not.
Yeah. It's not Naughty
Dog.
Dog.
Because it's Naughty Dog's IP.
So that actually made me think that it might be, because Naughty Dog hadn't done. You said they weren't necessarily going to do another Last of Us, or they weren't necessarily thinking about it. And Sony Ben did they did the Uncharted games for Vita and stuff. So I thought, well, maybe they would hand it off to them. But yeah, it obviously wasn't that in the end.
I think before any of that, it's credit where credit's due to Sean Layden and, of course, to the other presenters of the other conferences. They did mention, obviously, the tragedy that happened last weekend, and they tried to make it as humble as they could. And I think Sean Layden did a really, really good job of doing it sincerely. And
yeah, exactly. There was a nod in most of the conferences, and I think it was the Microsoft one open with a minute's silence. So it was It's nice to see that was handled kind of appropriately and accordingly.
It's a hard thing, really, really hard thing to get right, and I would never slate the company for trying to do it in their own way to tribute to it. But it was really nice to see all these companies try and show some kind of tribute to that, because obviously it was horrific. But yeah, sorry, to get back on the topic.
Yeah, on Days Gone, I think we saw, apart from the kind of the trailer fairly early in the conference, they obviously then closed with a much bigger kind of gameplay featurette, them kind of infiltrating the camp, trying to find this guy Two Dogs, and then obviously the horde striking. And I think the thing that I found most, that I guess left its mark most on me in that, was the kind of fluidity of the crowd AI. And so I mean, it literally, in the same way to something like World War Z, where you see the movie where you're seeing the zombies literally piling on each other. That was literally what was happening. He was throwing down obstacles for them, and they were
still coming.
Yeah, and then trying to shooting enough of them that it would slow them down, but they were like having to climb over each other. And
it's like an ocean of...
Even when he destroyed the bridge, they just kind of piled up. And that, obviously, it's going to take a ton of processing power, but it's also just really impressive kind of crowd AI in terms of how it was being handled. I thought that was left quite an impression, because compare that to a lot of zombies where you're dealing with kind of often quite sparse, shambling hordes. I mean, that was really atmospheric.
I think the other thing as well is, like, apparently this game's open world.
Yeah, that's the implication we get. They talked about kind of dynamic weather and stuff already, and kind of how it's going to be quite exploratory. I mean, that felt like quite a kind of an open world style mission. He was being sent to a camp to break in.
I think that looks pretty cool, but I think the overall vibe is, obviously, this is a guy who's now a mercenary in this world. So what I think concerns me a little bit is I want to see how they obviously differentiate this game theme and tone from The Last of Us, because obviously it's flirting dangerously close to that. I think gameplay wise, I think that in demo didn't necessarily show me anything which made me particularly excited for the game, because I think I've seen I've seen quite a lot of games do that genre now. So I'm interested to see more of that game, to see if it can change my opinion on that.
Yeah, the demo actually in a way kind of put me off a bit, because I'm not a huge on zombie games, and I like The Last of Us because they created these enemies that you actually wanted to avoid engagements with. And then this, I was really enjoying it, and then like he just starts dumping rounds into them.
That's so
and I was like, you don't I liked the bit when he was running away and trying to use the environment to protect himself.
Yeah, 100%. But the moment he was emptying 4 magazines in and reloading on the fly, and it's
like, it looked great. It was very technically impressive, but it kind of put me off a bit. But maybe it's just
I totally get where you're coming from. And equally as well, you feel like he was stopping. There was a point where the staircase he just run up was off screen, and all I could think in my head as he carried on mowing them down was, I'm fairly sure they've made it to the top of those stairs by now. Why are you not moving? The other thing that was great, that did break immersion again, was he loots the car engine for a part to kind of make it, and it's not like he kind of like gaffer tapes this kind of thing to the front of the gun or anything. He just kind of turns it and clicks it as if it's got like a predefined lock, like just, oh yeah, it's fine, don't worry, my gun is compatible with the with this engine component.
It's so weird. I see exactly what you mean. The gameplay demo does, initially it looked like a mix between like Sons of Anarchy and say like The Walking Dead or something like that, but then the gameplay demo just kind of makes it
a tad more generic, but with some nice polished gameplay, a tad generic. Yeah, we then obviously came on to something which, if we want to take a game that's a hell of a lot more distinctive in terms of art style and kind of undertaking, The Last Guardian, which again we've got a PS4 exclusive here again, and we have a date.
We've got a date,
25th of October 2016, so it's not that far off.
Yeah, we can believe that when we can actually hold the thing in our hands.
It's when you can pet the luck dragon.
It's stylized as hell, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful.
It's very much Fumito Ueda's style by now.
Exactly, and it's
it's good to see that game is finally going to be able to be like released and playable. But I just really want to play it. It's so weird because there's no way a game that's been in development for that long, the amount of hype that's probably generated it, nothing could live up to that hype. But I'm still very interested to play still the world, the architecture, that Trico, I think his name is.
Trico,
It
yeah.
just looks so cool.
I mean, because the original trailer was what, 2009. It's had quite a long time to build hype.
It's been in development for nearly 8-9
Yeah.
years now. Yeah, the entirety of the Uncharted series, 4 games, managed to release in the time it's taken this game to make.
That's a good statistic. I like that. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say really, apart from it looks gorgeous and it's coming soon, which is good.
Then we had Horizon Zero Dawn, which again is one that's...
Yes.
I mean, I'll hand
Okay.
over to you, Ken.
I was going to say, so this is the game I went into E3 looking forward to seeing more of the most, and it probably, after all the press conferences were done, probably the game I'm still the most excited about. And hearing a lot of people who've played it now and saying that it does feel good, you know, it's kind of this weird combination where you're doing precise bow combat, but then also against aggressive melee enemies, which is probably a terrible combination, but apparently completely works, completely pulls it off. And yeah, having the big open world, and sounds like lots of crafting and quite an open quest structure, it sounds like, which is good to see. And we got a little bit more character development.
I mean, there was a character trailer early this year, wasn't there?
Aloy's just really cool as a protagonist.
Yeah, I'm really into the whole aesthetic, the whole, hey, here's lots of nature and then also robot animals, and then
so
you can
cool.
hack a robot ox thing and ride it, or you can hack a robot dog and it'll fight by your side in battle.
It's almost like the theme for this game is almost like when you're like 5-6 years old, what do you want to do? You want to be a hunter of like robot dinosaurs. It's almost like a 6-year-old pitch it, but it's brilliant. Yeah. I love that.
And the world aesthetic, like you say, is phenomenal. I mean, that scene when she comes down to the kind of river basin, you've got the Diplodocus style things kind of strolling across, and you've got the fog coming down off the mountainside. I mean, it looks exquisite, and it's also nice to see. It's amusing in a way to have probably some of the most nicely imagined kind of benevolent creatures, you know, a general kind of harmless wildlife, because wildlife in games usually seems to be either it's there to kind of run away from you and hunt, or it's there to attack you. Here you've got these kind of like these massive creatures that are on a whole different scale to you, just strolling through, almost like they don't even care that you're there unless you're interacting with them. And I think it's amusing to see that imagined in such a lovely way, and yet it's being done with things that aren't even animals. Like it's this you know, cybernetic wildlife. It's really cool concept.
The other thing as well with what's going on in there is that obviously they are the dominant species, not humans, and because it's obviously very post apocalypse. I'm really looking forward to see how they flesh that story out, because there's like thousands of years of explaining there to do as to how robot dinosaurs or animals or whatever are now the dominant species. That to me is like really fascinating, and it's like can get a bit tired of the whole open world formula, but the action and like obviously the fact that the buildings were destructible. Did you guys notice how?
Yeah, when it swung its tail straight through one of the main houses.
It just looks cool.
I have to say, out of everything that I've seen from the PS4, from the Sony demonstration, of the things that I don't know that are coming to PC, this is what I want to see most come to PC. Because it looks gorgeous.
It reminded me almost, there's something about it that reminded me almost of, like, do you remember Heavenly Sword? Like, in terms of its kind of overall kind of vibe. Again,
yeah. It's the redhead protagonist.
That's realistic in terms of high fidelity, but slightly stylized still. Like, it doesn't look true to life. It's got a slight kind of stylization to the art style, and it's really nice. On next to a game which, again, took me totally by surprise, from Quantic Dream, which was Detroit: Become Human. And I have to say, again, with these sorts of trailers, there were kind of touches of what appeared to be kind of borderline gameplay, but obviously it was very much a predetermined trailer. But my God, that, maybe it's my personal take as just in terms of what resonates with me, but that was, again, completely by surprise, one of the things that I most got excited about in the entire E3 showcase so far. You had these like crime scene investigation scenes that were almost kind of a bit like the ones where you play as the CIA guy in Heavy Rain, where you're kind of going around with the augmentation, allowing you to kind of pick apart this crime scene and kind of work out what's been going on there, down to the kind of the multiple decision trees as to how to get to the end of that scene and see how it plays out. Yeah, to me it was almost like Heavy Rain meets Deus Ex, and I love both of those games, so like wow, I just love the vibe, and I really hope that the full game is going to be able to live up to that. And I don't really know yet, because this was the first I've seen of it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they flesh out the rest of the game, because Quantic Dream obviously they're so into their motion capture and making photorealistic stuff, and that obviously then plays into how do you then go about maintaining that in game. It often tends to mean that the gameplay is angled towards kind of these like maybe smaller scale scenes, where you can really appreciate all that detail. I really can't wait to see more.
I mean, I'm someone who's never really been particularly sold on David Cage, but
he does say some pretty silly things.
This made me want to see more of it.
Yeah, same.
I'm prepared to, like, when I saw Beyond Two Souls, I was like, this isn't doing enough to make me give him like another shot, but this game absolutely did.
Yeah, I mean, Heavy Rain, because I had stumbled on the PS4 adoption wagon for quite a while, and then finally, only last year, kind of bought my PS4 and was like, okay, it's got so many bloody exclusives. Now they're starting to actually remaster all the PS3 releases. Screw it, I'll do it. So it was only kind of this year so I've been playing Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls is still sitting there in the box ready to be picked up. But I was really impressed by it. I remember playing A Moment of Silence, I think it was, back in the day on PC, and those sorts of kind of narrative games, and equally I used to like it with the kind of the walk around and explore style puzzle games, the right back from the MS-DOS world of like the Indiana Jones game, and kind of Monkey Island and stuff, through to Siberia and that series of stuff. I just love these like beautiful narrative pieces, and yeah, I guess it's a personal taste thing.
I will say as well that he has to now compete with Until Dawn coming out,
Yeah,
and being
exactly.
maybe my favourite Quantic Dream style game so far.
It didn't come from Quantic
but
Dream.
not from Quantic Dream.
Yeah, Until Dawn's really good.
It's fantastic.
I still need to finish that actually. I've only got like halfway through it, but
Oh man, I've played that game multiple times, including in co-op with other people making
it's
decisions.
amazing just how much of a Twitch following that game had as well.
Yeah, it's so good to watch.
So,
Salem, I think your moment might have come.
Oh boy.
they started giving us a trailer to something which looked a little bit like PT, combined with VR and the kitchen, and then suddenly some words came on screen that messed with everyone's head. Salem.
Can you outlast 5 nights at Leon's? You'll need lots of PT to do so. Okay, so Resident Evil, right? I don't have the most popular opinion of Resident Evil because I feel that the classic games with the tank controls and the fixed camera angles were really only scary because you couldn't control your character. And when they started moving away from that towards the over-the-shoulder stuff in 4 and 5, and even the more action-oriented stuff in 6, and especially the Revelation series, Resident Evil became less of a horror game and more of an action against monsters by incredibly powerful people. And I was getting a good kick out of that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was a little bit disappointed that PT wasn't going to turn into a Silent Hills game because I like Silent Hill as well. But this is not a Resident Evil game. Granted, you could make it a Resident Evil game, but why is it in the flagship series and not an offshoot?
I think it's because they wanted to essentially reboot the series because there was such a lot of hostility towards what the original Resident Evil 6 was. Everyone unanimously really did not like that game. And when you consider what Resident Evil is to most people, it's like at its core, that game is a horror game. So I'm interested to see. Obviously, that demo, I'm not sure it's going to be a full reflection of what the final product's going to be.
Yeah, they did say it was more of a tonal demo than it was actual gameplay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think what that thing is to try and do, it's more to try and establish the fact that Resident Evil is much less now an action game and much more to the core of its root a horror game.
The thing of it is, though, you could easily point back to The Evil Within and see this very well could have been Resident Evil 7. I mean, you could have just swapped out whatever his name is for Leon Kennedy, and you wouldn't have noticed a real difference there.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think obviously I haven't played the demo yet, but from what I saw, because they do allow you to download the the entire demo for you to play now. But what they were trying to do is, at its core, establish the fact that Resident Evil is now, once again, a horror game. Because that is, if you were to name a horror game, off the top of your head, you would naturally, instinctively, most gamers would say Resident Evil. I think that's a fair assumption. So I think the whole point of this was to really establish the fact that that is what it is again.
I mean, it's a bold gamble, and presumably the final game will presumably be first person because it's going to have this full VR support.
The last time we had a first person Resident Evil, was that Resident Evil Survivor on the PS2
There was,
with a light gun?
Wasn't there an Outbreak or something along those lines that was first person? Or was that before that?
Oh, there was one on the Wii as well. It was
I think
shit.
quite possibly. I really couldn't tell you.
There was Umbrella Chronicles on Wii, which was awful.
But we are starting to get, this is a full AAA game
In VR.
Mm.
Yeah.
which is exactly what VR needed, was actual full games.
Exactly,
So-
and they used this. This came in just shortly before what we talked about before, the kind of their showcase of the Battlefront X-Wing mission, Arkham VR, Final Fantasy VR, which sadly though all seem to be appearing as experiences rather than games.
Yeah.
But at least it's getting pushed. I think they realise now, it's out there on the market, and the thing that Sony do have in their favour is, you got a $400 VR headset, which, yeah, it's pricey. It's the price of your console again, but compare it to, the HTC Vive and Oculus coming in, at like almost double that. Like they've got a USP at least, so they need to play it up and make sure there's enough content for it, because there's so much kind of sandboxy, I guess, kind of open source style stuff you can do when you're on a PC platform, that they need to know that, well, okay, if you're buying your console twice over on Sony, like, here's why.
Yeah, I think that's one thing with PlayStation VR. There's a lot of games on there right now which are really tempting me. So Riggs is definitely tempting me. The new Resident Evil is tempting me out to get it as well. The Batman Arkham one, the new one that was actually next in the demo was Hardpoint, but we're still on Resident Evil.
It's October 13th, isn't it? Is the release for now for VR,
Yeah.
and they said they've claimed 50 games on release. So they're being bold.
It's a hefty library.
They're being bold for release, and for good reason. On the topic of VR games as full games, then they also featured Farpoint.
Yes.
Which looks really cool.
I'm
it's
interested in this
again
quite a lot.
hard to tell from what we've seen. It did look almost like a fleshed out experience as opposed to really being a full game, and it the fidelity wasn't necessarily fully there, but it still looked like a polished release. I think it's got potential. There's the VR aim controller already, which is coming out, which is, again, we're going back to like light gun territory.
I think this is more of a game than just an experience. I think.
No, it is. We know it's a game, but I'm saying the framing of it in terms of how they showcased it. There wasn't like a huge emphasis on kind of the narrative and stuff yet. It still felt a little bit to me like, is it going to feel very unique? Is it going to have much substance when it's released? So we saw very little about it in terms of, I guess, the overall content. We know there's some kind of angry creature like trying to attack you. There's a lot of dust, a lot of kind of cool interplanetary stuff with Dr. Tyson and Dr. Moon, I think, were the two named characters there. So yeah, it looks cool. We'll have to wait and see as they reveal more about it. But again, great emphasis on VR.
Yeah, definitely.
But then, speaking of space shooters, we then had quite an interesting one, really, where this trailer comes in, and you find yourself actually, when all that space combat comes apart, in the back of your head, because we've already seen the reveals with Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and Battlefield 1, you kind of know it's Call of Duty. But then the thing in the back of my mind through that whole trailer was actually like, if this wasn't called Call of Duty, this trailer would actually be really exciting me. Like right up until the bit where he gets out of the ship and you start to realise it's a Call of Duty game again, but with grappling hooks. The space combat was awesome.
I think that's why they didn't show the name of the star.
And it's not on rails. It's pretty fast paced as well. The speed of those ships is, thinking back to I've played a bit of Elite Dangerous now, but it's much more a sim. And you compare that to the back in the days of like Tacky on the Fringe and and Freelancer and stuff. Like, I miss space combat.
Yeah, same.
And it's amazing to think that Call of Duty is getting it before Battlefront does.
Yeah.
With Infinite Warfare, it's really going to come down to, are you tired of the yearly grind of Call of Duty, and are you miffed enough about the Modern Warfare remaster thing
Bolt on.
that you want to send a message to them, or do you look at it and you go, oh come on, that actually does look kind of cool? I'm so torn.
Exactly. I mean, it's not just a new setting, it's actually fundamentally different core gameplay. The same way as when they introduced ships into Assassin's Creed, it changed the game. Like, this does look like it can do that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that Call of Duty is the game where you're going to get into a ship, take off, go through the atmosphere and out into space and have a dogfight.
And in Star Wars Battlefront, you can't do that.
But then, still it has that. What's great about it, you can hop out then as well and re-engage, which is the thing that some of those flight games, kind of space sims miss, is the ability to then get out and remember you are a person. You're not just a kind of a faceless cockpit. I mean, you only kind of really notice that in something like Elite Dangerous when you run out of fuel and your life support goes off and you then float out into space, which is kind of tragic and really painful to watch. But obviously it's one of the things that is kind of selling people on Star Citizen at the moment, that kind of the blending of the two and making sure it still had that shooter element. It'll be interesting to see, slightly off topic, how Elite Dangerous deals with that, as they're already putting on. Obviously they've had Horizons and allowed you to do surface missions, and with the bigger ships you're able to kind of co-pilot. So yeah, interesting to see how people are going to start to kind of bring that genre back, because like God, ever since those crowdfunding successes, obviously Star Citizen on a much bigger scale, but both of those were crowdfunding successes, and perhaps the industry's waking up to that a bit, that it's not just a retro genre, this is something that people are still crying out for.
Yeah.
And seeing it picked up by a franchise as big as COD, like,
it's a big deal.
That's something to stand up and take note of.
It takes quite a while. That's the funny thing with this demo as well. It takes quite a while to actually twig that it's Call of Duty. It's not until they're actually not going through space, they're just on the actual ship invading that. That's when it started to slowly twig. This is a Call of Duty game. But if no one told me, it's like, that looks interesting.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting was, we spoke when we were talking about Battlefront about how like laser combat can sometimes feel a little bit underwhelming, and one of the things here is it's space combat, but it feels like, hey, we're just kind of working out space combat, and they have like ballistics and they have like shotguns in space and stuff, and that's real gnarly, and I'm kind of into that. Obviously with the
the classic trope of the fact that we still have plenty of sound, they've just kind of made it sound slightly boxy, so it's like you're in space now. It's like, guys, there's no atmosphere here. We shouldn't be hearing any of that. But it would be a pretty dull ass game if you just had to turn your speakers off and roll with it. So it looked cool. I mean, you even had they were keeping it slightly sci-fi. I mean, slightly. We're in space, but they had like what appeared to be like gravity grenades, almost like. Yeah. So there's some cool stuff going on, and that kind of the pop out shield and stuff. So yeah, it looks like it's got potential. Again, it's a COD game. We'll have to wait and see. But
I hope it's really good, because I actually want to play Modern Warfare Remastered.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to buy a bad game to get it Modern Warfare Remastered. Yeah. So I hope it's good.
I agree completely with that. I mean, Modern Warfare was the last Call of Duty game that I was heavily invested in, and as soon as I heard there was a remaster of it, my ears perked up, and then I heard the bad news.
Because I think, like you, Salem, as well, like, I'm one of those people that buys a game like COD, and you said the same with Battlefield. I buy it and I play the single player campaign. It's the first thing I do when I get it out of the box. It's only once I've completed the campaign I tend to go online and then find everyone's a way higher level than me, and I get munched. And that's why I miss being excited about a COD game, to be honest. And you don't have to let it, but yes, okay, you get the kind of year-on-year incremental releases, and you've got what can at times, sometimes for a certain demographic, be quite a toxic community, but mostly the ones who are too young to be playing it anyway. But yeah, hopefully it's something worth getting excited about again.
The multiplayer is probably still the same thing, but we'll brush over that.
But you can go in space, and then no one can hear you scream, except we can, because we can hear you scream down your mic.
In space, no one can hear you insult your mother. Yeah, I mean, maybe it won't be.
I will say this about the multiplayer in Call of Duty: it probably has the best first-person shooter controls on a game.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's tight. It is tight and well honed.
It feels really good to play.
I mean, I've played a good 20 hours of Black Ops 3 multiplayer, and it's a good time.
I'm about the same with Black Ops 3. Quite a lot of them. I think I bought like the first DLC pack as well for the maps. It's good.
And it can't be understated how much that plays into a game's success. I mean, people, for any of the people who kind of, I guess, put down Destiny for similar reasons to kind of The Division, in terms of the kind of maybe feeling like it was a bit of lack of substance to it, the one thing everyone unanimously agreed on when Destiny came out was like the gunplay feels great. Like it felt, and because they'd kind of taken like that kind of Halo ground kind of foundations and built upon it and made it something that felt a bit more impactful, a bit more physical.
It's impossible to understate how important that is, because if you take one of my favorite games of all time, Deus Ex Human Revolution, can you imagine a death match in that? Would be terrible.
I'm going to take us on now as well to, before we go back to their final closing flagship releases, a couple more what we described previously as the change in tones. So we had a little trio, which we can, I guess, discuss as a group. So we had Skylanders Imaginators featuring Crash Bandicoot, because obviously Crash is back at long last.
I'm so happy.
Oh, come on. It's the fact that they're remaking those games from the ground up as well. 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, fully on board.
And then also Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, which again, more of the same. We know what to expect from the Lego franchise, but great to see more of it.
It's still going to be fun.
Hit us with all three.
I tell you what, though, I'm very glad that I watched The Force Awakens about a month ago, because they spoiled most of that film in the Lego
They really
trailer.
did think that through, did they?
I guess they're just working on the principle that they just look at the box office numbers and go, well, it appears that 98% of the population have seen the film. That, or they've all seen it 6 times.
It will be very hard finding someone at this point that still hasn't seen it.
Though I think I live with one, but that's fine. So yeah, I mean, Crash is back. We're really excited about that. Skylanders. Have any of you guys actually got your hands on the existing Skylanders material?
I have not played Skylanders since the first one.
I've never played any of those particular games, and yet somehow I have 2 of those Marvel Imagine whatevers. I have 3 Disney Infinity figures and an amiibo.
But this is Salem we're talking about here. I think Brad can probably rival you for the Disney Infinities. He is a massive Disney man. I think you'll probably find that you and him could talk for far too long about that. But yeah, I mean, it looks really fun. It looks really cool, and dropping someone like Crash in, especially at this time when the franchise kind of reboot is coming back, is great. And I mean, he's one of the like best loved characters from I think a number of our youth. So hell yes to that.
He's kind of like, he was the original face of Sony.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. You had Crash, you had Spyro and stuff. They were, you had Crash Team Racing back in the day.
It's weird. I'm almost more excited for it being a remake of the first 3 than if it was a new game, because I know those games are good.
I think I know the reason that they're doing it is because they're going to use this to kind of gauge as to how popular the Crash series really is, and then they can use the sales from that to figure out if they want a new game from it. The interesting thing, though, is if they do make a new game, who's going to do it? Because we know Activision is making it because they originally published it.
I mean, Naughty Dog, right? They're done. Uncharted ended, right? No, they're off making the Uncharted kart racer.
Uncharted Team Racing. That'd be so good.
Bagsy Sully.
The other thing as well that's really nice about this is that, because I guess when you talk about judging the success of the franchise and kind of the viable audience, ways that, because there aren't really that many games doing this still at the moment anymore. Actually, we had another Ratchet and Clank. We've got Yooka-Laylee coming out, which again was a Kickstarter, kind of building on Banjo-Kazooie, kind of a spiritual successor again. But there's a market, but it's not something that you're seeing saturated as it used to. Back in the day, in kind of the early console days, there were a load of these, and it was like almost like this whole kind of the 3D platformer is something that we don't see half as much of these days as we used to. So it's great to see that coming back. But I can understand, like you say, them wanting to kind of judge the market a bit.
It's also interesting that this came right after Ratchet and Clank did incredibly well, both like critically and in terms of sales, like more than they were expecting. And you wonder if like maybe that was enough for them to greenlight this project.
I think it's the Crash Bandicoot stuff's been alluded at for a while. Because did any of you guys see the Sony conference, the PlayStation Experience one that was in December last year?
Yeah, when he had the T-shirt on.
Yeah, I mean, he gave a nod to that in today's, and he said, no T-shirt this year.
Yeah, because everyone complained that he had a T-shirt and didn't actually do anything.
I think the other thing as well, you guys on about the way 3D platform is coming back, it kind of shows, obviously, everything does go in cycles. I think because there were so many 3D platformers, to a certain degree, I think maybe the market got a bit tired of it. And it's the same more recently. So, for example, shooters set in like World War II, there was a period where we had so many. we got tired of it, and then eventually we do want that back.
And then
And I
zombies.
think it's probably going to be the same.
Yeah, you just need a break.
It could be the same now with hero shooters, so games like Overwatch and Battleborn and anything that's like hero based.
Yeah.
Eventually, people might start to get tired of that formula.
And then, of course, we had a wonderful little reveal. The big man, Mr. Hideo
The
Kojima
big man.
himself, strolls out. I
That
mean,
man was welcomed back like an absolute hero, and he deserves it.
have you seen the tweet from Norman Reedus, actually? Because now, obviously, they're back working together again after...
Yeah, Konami Tears. It's
Oh, he
amazing.
tweeted out the Konami Tears picture, didn't he?
Yeah, the Konami Tears photo. I mean, so good. I mean, obviously after Silent Hill kind of went under and was buried, like it's so great to see those guys back together again.
Definitely.
The thing really with Death Stranding, the unveil that was really interesting is that obviously it was completely cryptic.
It's Hideo Kojima. Everything's scripted.
Well, of course it is. I mean, that's how he tells stories, is by just basically injecting your head with some weird series of chemicals through your screen. But we got a trailer that was hugely atmospheric. I mean, credit to the soundtrack as well there. You know, you get Norman Reedus there, naked, waking up, kind of holding a crying baby, which then disappears and leaves a trail of black, like, footprints, is somehow kind of connected to him, and then he has, like, cesarean scars. He follows it down to a beach, and there's beached creatures everywhere and weird things floating in the sky. Like, it's nuts. And the one thing that you come away from that thinking is, you know, Kojima's gone on the record and stated, you know, like, it's not going to be a horror game. You know, it's like, it's probably, was it, you know, action game, he's kind of described it as. And yet you come away from that trailer thinking, like, this is a fucking a mindfuck thriller that we're seeing right here, like, and, you know, with kind of hints of horror, but it looks really, really potentially great. But how can we say at this stage, apart from that it's him?
There's no gameplay, but I'm still like, what is this? Just that alone is keeping me so intrigued throughout the entire thing.
I'm going on record right now. There's going to be an air raid siren in the first 5 minutes of Death Stranding, and because it is Sony has pulled Kojima, and Kojima pulled Norman Reedus, and I cannot envision another situation then they're just going to go and make PT with a different name.
I think that's probably what we'll see. But who knows? Time will tell.
Yeah, we already did. It's called Resident Evil 7. Can we give one nice little nod to Resi? Someone showed me the other day. It's just a really nice little aspect of tiny logo design in the way they've taken Resident Evil 7 and Bioshock 7, obviously the Japanese release name. They've managed to interpret 7 in either normal numbers or Roman numerals into the title. I'm like it's the little things in life.
My favourite thing about that is that in our territories it's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and then it's the reverse in Japan, but Steam lists both, so that game is listed on Steam as Resident Evil 7 Biohazard / Biohazard 7 Resident Evil.
Oh wait, hang on, there's something great as well. As Hideo Kojima came out, and obviously everyone was applauding and stuff, apparently the members of the orchestra were literally shouting, "Fuck Konami." That's amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
And also he came out to like the Mad Max Fury Road music at his own request.
I love how short his intro went. He's literally just, he quieted the crowd down and went, "Hello, I'm back." He goes, "Here's something new."
He always
Please enjoy."
does.
And
He's
that's it. It's
so-
just, yes, mate.
I mean, there was some great crowd moments in general, wasn't there? I mean, when they did the Resi reveal, there was just the guy when they went, you know, from the developers of the kitchen, you know, like after or before the kitchen, there was nothing. You just heard the guy in the audience go, "Not kitchen."
Konami is just crying over their pachinko machines right now.
It's for us guys, I guess, over in this market. Well, sorry, this market. You're out there in the US, mate. But for both of us, I guess it's really just jarring, isn't it, to think that is such a big thing out there. You know, can you imagine over here trying to think, like, you know, we think of like the Namco arcade in London, which is like a barren wasteland, and yet out there, those pachinko machines, like that is life.
I mean, I'm still playing Konami games, but purely because I do videos for casino reviews.
That sounds heartbreaking.
Now all my Konami games are just slot machines.
Levels.
It is a little bit sad.
And then we had a bit of a surprise closer, not necessarily the sort of thing you would expect to wrap up a Sony conference, especially one filled with such big flagship titles. But Spider-Man.
Made by Insomniac.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what's excited me the most. As soon as that Insomniac logo showed up, it's because obviously they are a massive part of everyone's childhood. So some of the games they made with Spyro and Ratchet and Clank. So as soon as he said, a lot of expectation for a guy from Queens and the Marvel logo flashed up, my head exploded. And I was like, there's Tony Spider-Man!
And let's get it straight as well, like, typically, there have been some good Spider-Man games, and there have been some very bad Spider-Man games.
Spider-Man 2 on PS2 was amazing.
But the one thing that has always typically been the case, usually, is that for some reason, the Spider-Man games will always look slightly worse than everything else that's out at the time. Like, typically because they're trying to make you swing through a big open city really fast, and the load times have to be accounted for. But
It's got to be smooth.
my God, it looks gorgeous. Like it looks really good. It's slightly cartoony, but not too much. Really, really smooth, both in terms of like how the frameworks were running, and obviously, well, it's very early to say it's a trailer. But just in terms of the environments, it looked great as you were swinging through the streets. And nice little Easter eggs like the kind of the Osborn for Mayor billboard on the left. So again, I'm sure Goblin's going to be having a nice heavy feature.
I love the fact that as well that it's more than anything what gives me a lot of confidence in this game, and the reason I'm so excited for it, because normally I wouldn't be that bothered about it, is because it's Insomniac making it, and obviously they are a very much a loved developer, and I trust them to do this IP justice. It kind of makes me very hyped for this game. I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of it.
I'd agree. And Salem, I guess you are being Mr. Figurines. I would it's a great person to chat to about the costume that he's wearing in this as well, because I really love the new look and feel. It looks almost like he's got the eyes from Captain America: Civil War, like that kind of, it's almost like the camera lens style stuff, but then featuring a costume with a lot more blue, but then the white Spidey logo on it.
I'm not sold on the white spider. I mean, honestly, I think from a story perspective, it might work out in his favor because it does make him look obviously a little bit more of a good guy. But then, at the same time, every single Spider-Man game has had alternate outfits. So if you don't like the white spider, I'm sure there's something else.
It's weird, that suit seems to like really divide people. It's almost like Marmite. It's like the Spider-Man Marmite, so people either love it or hate it. Like, I love it, but I hated it at first, but then it grew on me.
I mean, I'm not 100% sold on it, but at the same time, it's the exclusive for PlayStation 4 that's hurting me on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, really. It's weird because they did break out from developing for Sony recently, for their last couple of games, and now, but I guess that's more of a Sony thing that it's.
I think it's because Sony Studios own the Spider-Man license.
Yeah, exactly.
Just jumping back to the costume, I would just say there's a great little illusion someone had on Twitter that it literally looks like Spider-Man has partnered with Pepsi. His overall suit branding. I mean, the look and feel's quite mixed. It's a little bit like, if any of you have seen the one in Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 200, where he's wearing, it's still just kind of a two-color suit, but it looks kind of a red and white mix. Or if you look at like the Spider-Man armor that he wears, like the Mark III armor, that's again the spider logo, whilst black is much more similar to that and has the kind of the sectionated bits. He has kind of pauldrons and stuff in that. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to hear a bit more when they start interviewing the devs and tell us more about, I guess, where the inspiration came from. But it is a bit of a departure, look and feel wise. Whether or not that Pepsi sponsorship will turn out to be true, who knows? Maybe we'll get some wonderful promo in the run up to the game's release. That about wraps us up for the actual games. But do any of you have any particular highlights or things you want to share that we haven't touched upon so far?
Their press conference ended kind of weirdly. Like they brought back out Days Gone for that demo. There has been a lot of suggestion that they pulled something from the end of the thing, possibly Red Dead 3. Like maybe like because of the recent tragedy, they said like the suggestion was that there was they weren't happy showing the trailer for it. So it could have been that, could have been something else. Maybe it wasn't. But like their conference was short, and Sony's isn't normally short, and also it just kind of ended weirdly with bringing back out a game that was there earlier.
Agreed, especially given a lot of what they put in earlier, especially early on in the conference, was very much kind of back-to-back trailers without as much kind of like as much exposition to them. Yeah. It maybe implies, like you say, they had left space for a bigger featurette.
What I heard potentially is that they were thinking about showcasing the Neo. So what they might have done is looking at what Xbox's was, and the fact that it was allegedly that much more powerful than what Sony were going to do. Maybe that's why they cut it.
Possibly. They did state before, like right before the show, before E3 started, that they weren't planning to show the Neo. But
yeah, because I think Sony's angle is always, because they do this whole, it's about the players thing. They tend to angle themselves more on the games. And I think, to be honest, with the Neo, the big kind of, I guess, deal breaker in terms of the Neo versus Project Scorpio will likely be release date. If the Neo is out significantly earlier, it's then that could change everything. If they both come out at a similar sort of time, then you might end up finding a similar sort of play out between them of, okay, the Scorpio is just empirically better, but by that point you've already got a massive PS4 loyalty in terms of how many units they've already shipped. So and the kudos of the exclusives that they've got. So we'll have to wait and see.
They showed Mountain Blade 2 at the PC show.
Oh man, yeah, I've seen quite a lot of the gameplay for Mountain Blade 2.
Like, we can't really go through that because it's such a long show and it's mostly just like interviews.
No, exactly. But God, I really am hyped for Mountain Blade. I love that. I still play the last game, even though it feels like 20 years old when you play it, and yet it's just so much fun. So as we come to an end of the conference content, what were the individual kind of standouts, if you had to pick one game that was the highlight of E3 2016 for you guys? Take it away. We'll go through you first, Ken.
For me, it's got to be Horizon, I think. It's the game I came in wanting to see more of, and it delivered what I was hoping to see, pretty much. It still looks amazing, and I can't wait to play it. It's a little way off. I think it's like February or something, February next year. So a game I wanted to see a lot of, and they gave me what I wanted, and I'm still super excited for it. And
Chris?
The entire of the Sony conference and all their games.
Wow. If ever there was a cop-out answer.
I mean, there's so many.
God, that's a hard question. I think if I had to pick one, it'd probably be... I'm with Ken, Horizon Zero Dawn. That game looks stunning, and I really can't wait to play that. The combat looks so much fun. Everything about the game just intrigues me. So, yeah, that's my pick.
And Salem?
I'm going to say I'm going back to... I'm really looking forward to going back to Dishonored and playing Dishonored 2. It's just that entire art style and the world in general was really fascinating. And getting to go back there looks like a hell of a lot of fun. But special mention goes to those 3 words that kept popping up in the Microsoft convention and Windows 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I'm glad you mentioned Dishonored, because that was my secret second pick.
I guess my special mentions, I'd go out to... So I think I've got a handful of special mentions. We Happy Few, for the same reasons we talked about before, just the atmosphere of the world. And that kind of Bioshock vibe, especially coming, we have that hand in hand with seeing the Dishonored playthroughs at the same conference. Like, it's just great to see more of that in gaming. Ghost Recon Wildlands, I think, gets a mention for the fact that I will probably play a lot of it, even though it could go either way on release. And Prey as well, I think massively. I don't feel as hyped for it as I could have, purely in spite of the context we talked about before, but really, really excited to see where that could go in terms of just, we know from the heritage of that franchise, obviously it's in different hands now, that it was able to kind of place a different tone on shooters, and that's now in the context of the return of Quake and of Doom. So I've got really high hopes for it. But my big hype, as I mentioned before, actually is for Detroit Becomes Human, which, again, it's for me, it's just one of the biggest things of gaming is all about. For me, it's about storytelling and kind of interactive visualization of really, really strong narratives. And it's definitely going to be a game that's not for everyone. The previous releases, from the same guys, both Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, and other games that they've kind of tried to do that in the same light, aren't for everyone, and they've proven that. But are they for me? Hell yeah, they are. And I really liked the kind of the world setting of this, that kind of like cyberpunk sort of feel. So awesome.
As a wise man once said, David Cage is a golden god.
Hells to the yes.
I think if I had any special mentions, I'd probably say, I'm going to sound like such a Sony fanboy right now. The new God of War looks incredible. Last Guardian and the new Spider-Man. All 3 of those, just, they tick all the right boxes for me.
It was a good show. Like, the whole...
Yeah.
Across all the conferences, good show. Lot of good games that I'm interested in.
Amen to that. So yeah, so after a really, really good E3, we're going to have a hell of a lot to carry on catching up on. I mean, God, it took us long enough to even get this cast together after the conferences on day 0, and we're now seeing E3 kind of coming to a close. We haven't even had a chance to touch on all of the stuff from the Nintendo Treehouse as well. So I'm sure we'll be trying to get some features out on that over the coming weeks. But stay tuned to the Midnight Gamer and keep an eye out for all the rest of the gossip that's going to be ongoing across the web, because there's a hell of a lot to talk about and a hell of a lot to look forward to. But thanks for tuning in.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers.